name is Walner Homer, and today is July 15th, and I'm about to tell you the 5 pillars of wealth. So pretty much the way it works is this. The first pillar is education. The second pillar is media. The third pillar is judicial. The fourth pillar is politics. The fifth pillar is economics. An education without economics is worth nothing. As a matter of fact, as you can tell, there is a 1 at the end of the education and there is a 5 at the end of economics. So let me give you an example. For instance, O.J. Simpson, we all agree that actually he killed those 2 people. If you don't believe that that's the case, let me show you this. So O.J. Simpson was here in the judicial system. Okay? So O.J. Simpson had economics, I'm going to give him a 5. In politics, O.J. Simpson had a big network, I'm going to give him a 4. In the judicial system, he hired some of the best attorneys that are out there, I'm going to give him a 3. In media, we're talking about the best football player, one of the best football players of all time, I'm going to give him a 2. And plus, O.J. Simpson was educated, I'm going to give him a 1. So as you can tell, O.J. Simpson had 15 points, and then the people actually he killed, they had 0 points. That's why he won the case. Now, another example. Let's say that you were also in the judicial system and you committed the same crime. Do you have $5 million to defend yourself? No, you don't. If you don't have $5 million, you're not going to get the same thing as O.J. Simpson. Of course, you have to take into account your politics, and you don't have the same clout as O.J. Simpson pretty much. So what happened was actually, however, if you're educated, if you want to take your education over to the judicial system and say, I'm educated, these guys are going to laugh at you because an education without economics is worth nothing. So in a nutshell, we agree this is the way that the world works. Let me show you something. So the credit card company charges 24% of interest on a credit card. Okay? So what they did, the credit card company went to their friends. The credit card company said, you know what? I'm going to create a credit card. And then pretty much they went to their friends. That's 4 points. That's 5 points. Then they went to their friends in politics and said, you know what? Write me some rules that actually says if you don't pay me, I can garnish your wages. That's 4 points. Then they go in the judicial system. They say, you know what? Enforce the rules. That's 3 points. And then in the media, they tell you to master the moment. That's 2 points. And then education, most people, by the time they got out of college, they don't even know anything about finance. So pretty much, if you are not part of this circle right here, you become what's on the menu. So you're what's on the menu. That's why actually, as far as credit, nobody knows anything about credit because these guys, they want to make sure that, you know what, they control this whole thing if you're not part of this menu right here. All right, now, let me show you something. Now, let me leave this here, 24%. We're going to come back to it in a minute. Now, I'm going to go over here. This graph right here, the average person lives 80 years. Okay? The mid-range of when people actually start losing strength is between 35 to 40. 35 to 40. Okay? One thing we'll say that is that knowledge is infinite. This is age right here, right? So what most people have done, they use their youth to acquire knowledge. So pretty much if I were to use this graph and I say, okay, by the time you reach 35 to 40, that's the mid-range, you're going to lose your strength. However, when you study from 0 to 35 to 40, what's going to happen now is that your strength goes down, but your knowledge is supposed to take over and actually take you higher. This is what's supposed to happen. So let me show you something. Economics. So we're going back to this here, right? So the first pillar is education. That's your base. This is where everybody starts from. Economics, I'm going to put up here. Judicial, I'm going to put up here. Media, I'm gonna put down here. And in politics, I'm gonna put up here. Alright, so because I explained one quadrant, I gotta explain all the other quadrants. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. What happened though is actually, before I do this, let me show you something before that. Between the age of 6 to 18, I'm going to call this grade school. Between the age of 18 to 22, I'm going to call this college. Between the age of 22 to 35, I'm going to call this workplace. Between the age of 36 to 42, I'll touch on this in a minute. Okay? So, I'm going to ask you some pretty silly questions. Question number 1. Tell me the 5th grade you received when you were a freshman in high school. Probably you don't know the answer. Please don't take this personal because there is a reason behind it. You don't, okay, you probably won't remember that answer because you probably won't remember that answer. However, how come you don't remember? You spent time on it. Don't take it personal. Most people can answer that question. Now, second question. What was the second argument you had 3 years ago? You probably don't remember that answer as well. How come you don't remember? You might have lost a friend. Don't take it personal. You're not supposed to remember that. Question number 3. How many pairs of shoes have you owned since you were born? You probably won't remember that. How come you don't remember? You spent time looking for those that you have on right now, or the one that you wore in the morning. In the end, people don't remember those stuff. Now I'm going to ask you some tougher questions. Do you remember the first person you fell in love with? I'm sure your answer is yes. Do you remember the first person to make you feel special? I'm sure your answer is yes. Do you remember how it felt like hanging out with your childhood friends? I'm sure your answer will be yes as well too. How come you were able to remember the second set of questions, but you could not remember the second set of questions? You were able to remember the second set of questions, but you couldn't remember the first set of questions. Here is why. Society wants you to believe that actually the first set of questions happen to be the more important things, when the reality is you can do 1,000 things. In the end, what matters the most is how you make people feel. That's what matters in the end. Now let me show you something. Now let's say that actually if you grew up in the suburbs, right? In the suburbs, you probably had access to really good education. That's a +1 right here. In the media, you probably had some of the best, you knew someone actually working in the media, or they represent you really well. That's +1. The judicial system, they treat you so nice because they treat you nice. That's just the way it is when you live in a suburb. Politics, you probably have someone who works in politics. In economics, you probably know someone who's rich. So out of the gate, you're starting with +5 points. So which means that you're inside of the circle. However, if you grew up in the inner city, your school is pathetic. The media thinks of you as low lives. The judicial system probably don't like you and they're probably harassing you all the time. You have no one representing you in the politics. And number 5, economics, you're broke. So as is, if you live in the inner city, you're starting with a -5. So if you're starting with a -5 in the inner city, automatically what happens to you, you're outside of their circles right here and you become what's on the menu. They will harass you, the media, you become what's on the menu, just the same thing that happened with the credit card here. Now let me show you something that's funny. Between the age of 6 to 18, grade school, if you live in the inner city, so now let me give you one last example. So remember Occupy Wall Street, okay? We can say 1/2 of the population within Occupy Wall Street is educated. So what happened is actually, let's say people within economics says, they don't like them. If we were to do the math, so the people in economics says, okay, I don't like these people here. And then they go into politics and they say, you know what? Go ahead and actually create a law that actually says these people should not gather here. And then At level 3, they say go enforce it. At level 2, they call them lowlifes and thugs. At level 1, they only have one half of education. So pretty much you have 14 and a half versus one half. Occupy Wall Street does not matter. Now, if you grew up from the age of 6 to 18, if you grew up in the inner city, you already noticed that you're out of the circle because you have a -5. However, if you live in the suburb, you already have a +5. Now, from the age of 18 to 22, if you did not already go into the pipeline of the judicial system already, where you get incarcerated or actually you are in prison, then if you're lucky enough to make it to college, you're gonna meet people here, 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 and here, because you will meet people actually who are majoring in all of these things here. However, if you went to school and you sat in your room, you didn't network, you didn't create relationship. Remember, at the end of the day, what matters the most is relationship. If you didn't create relationship along the way here, what's going to happen now is actually you are going to graduate from college with a +1. You see where you got the +1? And once you graduate, then by the time you graduate and you're looking for a job, you have no network. So it's important to create lasting relationship. It's important to create good feeling if you want to be inside of these circles right here. Because if you're in college and you network, you create relationship well along these, you're going to get out with a +5, which keeps you in the circle. Now, if you're poor and then you just graduated from college and you went to your parents, you said, Mom, I graduated from college. And your mom says, you know what? Mom, help me find a job. What is your mom going to do? Well, find a job. However, if you are rich, let's say Donald Trump's son actually graduated from college. You think actually he went looking for a job through one of those search agencies? No, he did not. He went to his dad and his dad said, where would you like to work? He could find him a job within all of these. That's just the way it works. So between the age of 22 to 35, right, when you're in the workplace, what you want to do, you want to create network and you want to create relationship within all of these here, because what happened is actually, it's important at the end of the day. It's all about relationship, and creating good feelings, because in the end, they will matter. Now, between the age of 36 to 42, this is the time when they start picking managers and picking managers. And by this time right here, they pick people they know. People hang out with people that are likable and compatible. Because at 36 to 42, when they start picking managers, you must have had a relationship already within all these realms here in order for you to go up. And let me show you something that's funny. You see 36 to 42? You see a correlation? It's the same time when your strength start going down and you start noticing this. Like for instance, Allen Iverson, by the time Allen Iverson actually reached 35 to 40, he couldn't play basketball anymore. So his strength went down. There was no knowledge. And that's why he started having negative return. However, Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, by the time they reached 35 to 40, what happened to them was actually they started having positive return because their strength went down, but their knowledge took off, and that's why they became billionaires. They learned how to use all of these, and they create relationship within all of these. So it's important to create relationship, and it's important to create relationship, which is very, very important. Now let me show you something that's funny, guys. So remember these quadrants we have here, which came from here? Watch this. From here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here. So we have the arrow going here. We have an arrow going here for media. So pretty much these quadrants are always in play. They don't stop playing. So what happened is actually, and you're going to find this funny. Here is your life. You see this flashlight? Initially when you started with education. As time went by, it increased like this. It increased, and what happened was actually you start having more knowledge and your strength start going down, but it's still increasing your network. Now, let me show you something. A good example, O.J. Simpson. When O.J. Simpson started, he started with education, and he went all the way up when he actually understood all of these things right here. And by the time he reached here, everything was working really nice for him. And you could actually see the whole thing. He had people within all these quadrants right here. However, once he actually committed those murders, his friends, his network got away from him. He lost his money within economics. He lost the media hated him, and then pretty much when he actually got involved into the second crime, that's why he's in prison right now. So you notice, if you're not constantly creating these relationships here, it will either contract, or expand. So it's important. It can move anywhere within here. It all depends on what you want to do. Because initially you started from here, and everything goes up here. That's what you want. And you want always to expand your network. Now let me show you something that would have taken you a long time to realize. In the corporate world, if you're starting with education, hard work, and experience, they will love you in the corporate world. That's a one. If you actually work in the corporate world, it's all about the bottom line. So you're starting with +6. So imagine you're doing really good work. You're doing excellent work. What will happen is actually they will love you. And of course, if you create a good relationship, because all offices have gossiping in there. This is gossip. That's +1. You're on the positive side of gossiping, you get a +1. The managers love you, that's a +1. You know the politics of the place, that's a +1. So pretty much you have a +9. +9 can go against any of these. Now, this is the private sector. Now in government, economics does not exist because government is not for profit. So since government is not for profit, then what happened though is that now you're dealing with politics. You got to understand the politics of where you work. Judicial system, you have to be on the good side of the managers who are doing the hiring and the firing. The media is gossiping. You want to be on the good side of gossiping because if you're just a worker, you have a +1 here. Gossiping, you have a -1. People don't like you. Managers don't like you. You don't understand the politics of the place. You're starting with a -2. So now that you have a -2, you're outside of the circle and you become what something bad do. They will gun for you and try to get rid of you. So at the end of the day, guys, it's important, very important, to create relationship because at the end of the day, if you want to go up the ladder, if you want to stay within the circle right here, if you don't want to be what's on the menu, create relationship within all of these. Create lasting bonds, create lasting feeling with one of these because with all of these, or people you meet along the way because if you don't, you will be what's on the menu. Okay? That's it.